Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to Noonday Meditation and Contemplative Prayer Power Hour, where we have been gathering together in this virtual sanctuary for over a year now to love and support each other through the pandemic crisis initially. My name is Martin Cowart, and I am so excited to be welcoming a number of gay, bi, transgender, extraordinary men to our broadcast this month who are just doing ordinary things that inspire us, because that's what life is. Life is a series of ordinary things about extraordinary people that move us ahead, that move us into connection, so we can be our extraordinary selves and change the world. And I'm just so grateful for everybody who joins us. I wanted to say, if you're joining us, please type into the chat and let us know you're here. Otherwise, I just see a number on the screen, and I like to know you're here. So please say hello to Jacob and myself so that we know you're here, and we can greet you and welcome you. And if you have any questions for either one of us, please put those into the chat, so that we can respond to them and we can create as much interaction as we can today. And again, this has been a virtual space. Initially, we started this as a place, as a refuge, if you will, for all of us to kind of get out of the drama of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've kind of come through that. We've also come through probably one of the most challenging and difficult years, certainly in American history, with racism. And we're not out of the woods yet. And that's why we're still here. We're not going anywhere. We still need to love and support each other through the crises we're certainly living through. But it seems like we at least have the right direction now. We've got leadership that seems to care about us, and we're making laws and we're making progress in creating social and economic structures for the benefit of everyone, not just for a few. So it's promising. It's exciting. And we're here today, Jacob Ratliff and I, who's a fellow coach, who I recently met when he joined my Facebook group, Financial Heart Space for Gay, Transgender Men. And I had we got on the phone, had a really wonderful conversation. And I was so inspired by his story and what he's doing and how he's helping the world of coaches, because it's hard to be a coach sometimes, to get out of our own way, because we often think we're not quite good enough to do what we're doing. You know, we need our own coaches to coach us through sometimes. So Jacob's got a wonderful story about how we really embrace our queer nature to be more powerful and share our gifts with the world. So I'm just going to with all that said, I'm going to invite Jacob just to share us and tell us how he got here. He tells us a little bit of his story and what his why is. Why does he like to do what he likes to do? What are you all about, Jacob? So take it away, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Martin, for having me. I'm really honored and glad to be here today and to share this space with you and with everyone who's joining us. So to start off, I'll share a little bit about my big why, my big vision, and mission for the world, which is I exist to show up and help LGBT members of the community, so my fellow LGBT members, really create love, joy, and kindness in their lives and in their businesses, so that they can share their gifts with the world and so that they can become the best versions of themselves. Because one of the things is that as queer people, we have so many gifts that the world so desperately needs. And when we can show up and when we can give of ourselves to impact other people's lives, we really show up changing the world. Because I truly believe that, us queer folk, we can change the world. And that is 100% true. So as Martin said, I work specifically with coaches and helping them with their marketing, but I don't want to talk about that as much as I do want to talk about my journey and how I got where I am today.
I want to hear what were you like when you didn't realize your best version of yourself? What did that look like? And what was the big epiphany moment that helped you see the truth?
Yeah. So I I'll kind of take you back several years into when I was working a full-time salary job right out of college. I was, one of the few people in my graduating class who had a full-time salary position before graduation, and I wasn't fulfilled by that. It was a good job. I was doing work that I cared about, but I didn't feel like I was showing up as myself every day. And that started to impact other areas of my life, where my work just was not aligning with my soul. And on top of that, I've always had that, entrepreneurial spirit about me. And in all honesty, I started my business out of this place of scarcity, out of this place of seeing the ceiling of my earning potential, out of, if I'm not fulfilled here, I might as well be unfulfilled somewhere else. I wasn't on this quest for fulfillment. So I left that position and I started my business, and things were going really well. It was, I think, within 3 months that I had a full client panel, and I was just maxed out, busy, kind of nose to the grindstone, feeling pretty unfulfilled. And in a lot of ways, I was right where I was 3 months prior. But I didn't really do anything different about that. I recognized it, but I didn't make a connection that something needed to change. So I kept kind of, nose down in that same direction, down this path where I was, in all honesty, more fixated on income than impact. And I was under this false belief that I had to choose one or the other. And I mean, talk about how disheartening and disempowering that is. And the business started to grow a little bit more, a little bit by little bit. And I was talking with a lot of prospective clients who were not people I wanted to work with. But I was saying yes, and I was working with them because I felt like I needed the money. I felt like I didn't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of, people who our values didn't align, personalities didn't align. It was like mixing water and oil in a lot of ways. It just didn't work. But what happened as a result of that was that what little fulfillment I was finding started to go way down. And I started to kind of resent my business and resent my clients and maybe even resent myself for putting myself in this position.
Mm-hmm.
I went like a lot of us who are entrepreneurs, we go into business to do the thing we love. And if I am looking at my watch and it's 15 minutes until a coaching call with a client and I'm dreading it, I just would rather do anything else but get on a Zoom call with this client. That's a red flag for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I started slowly to realize, and I was kind of resistant to this realization, even though it had been kind of hitting me in the face for several years now, was that if you look at my life outside of my business, I'm real gay. I'm very gay. I have, my friend circle is mostly fellow queer people. I don't lead kind of a heteronormative straight life in any way, shape, or form. But if you looked at my business, it didn't align with who Jacob was as a person. It was this almost, my business was showing up as this kind of watered down, straighter version of Jacob who was made to be more palatable and to appeal to everyone. And, I wasn't closeted in my business. My clients probably knew that I was gay. If it came up, I would tell them. But I wasn't leaning into it in any way, shape, or form. I was actually actively leaning away from it. So I kind of on a whim at this point, I was feeling really just, facing a lot of depression around my business. Even sleeping in until 9, 10 a.m., wanting to do anything but sit down to work for the day. So on a whim, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna show up loud and queer in my business. I'm just gonna see what happens. So I started with some small little things, including maybe like a small little rainbow in some places. And what I started to see was that it wasn't actually about, showing up as a queer entrepreneur that made a difference. It was showing up as myself.
Mm.
And a lot of people started to resonate with the stuff I was putting out that was increasingly, open about being gay and being a gay entrepreneur. And these, not all of these people were LGBT either. They just resonated with seeing someone showing up as himself.
Yes.
And I started to see this reception that was almost as if things had started just to kind of fall into place, which was a really weird experience for me because that had not been my experience thus far. It had been struggle, 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 and maybe something good will happen. And so I decided to go kind of all in on not just leaning in to my queer identity as an entrepreneur, but actually celebrating it and making it kind of this key pillar of my business. And the first thing I noticed is that I immediately stopped getting leads or talking with prospects who I just absolutely did not mesh with. I started attracting the people that I really wanted to talk with. And kind of my general rule since then has become, I don't work with clients who I wouldn't want to, go grab coffee or a beer with on the weekends. Because I had created these like two versions of myself, business Jacob and big old queer Jacob, and starting to bring them together and kind of blur those boundaries a little bit. Really just showed me this whole different version of who I could be as a person and as an entrepreneur. And the way that looked for me is, in part of celebrating this queer identity, this identity of a queer entrepreneur, was around community for me. In that prior to this realization, I was finding myself in a lot of professional circles that were, dominated largely by straight white conservative men. And I was like, I need a community. I felt this kind of responsibility to find a community that I fit in. And when I didn't, I said, okay, I'm going to create one because I know that I can't be the only LGBT coach here. I know that I'm not the only one with this experience. So I started being really intentional about connecting with other coaches who were part of the LGBT community. And that in and of itself was one of the biggest game changers for me, because it was this practice of creating these authentic connections with people we have this common ground here, and then discovering what our shared experiences are and being able to tackle them together rather than just sit in this place of isolation. Because that was a piece of it for me, prior to celebrating my queer identity as an entrepreneur, was that I was isolated. The professional circles that I was finding myself in were not circles that were for me. They were not created with people like me in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this like the simple act of being in a community that's created for people like you and me, that is what cuts through that isolation.
Well, that's what we can get excited about, right?
Yep, exactly.
And my one of my big beliefs, and I just did a video on this other day on, if you want to be successful, if you want to live the path of the heart, there are only 3 things that you should be doing. One of them, it should bring you joy. If you don't enjoy doing it, don't do it. If it doesn't bring you enthusiasm, don't do it. Or the last is acceptance. Can you accept doing it if it's serving a higher purpose? And those are the 3 pillars that I talk about that you are just expounding on, that give us value and meaning in our lives. And that is the path of living a life of purpose and service in the world, because you're enjoying creating this community. You're enthusiastic because you want to be, that's the world you want to create. It's the world I want to create, because that's the world I want to live in. And I'm not alone in that. You're in that, I'm in that, and anybody probably listening to us is in that world. And it's all about celebrating who we are and creating a community of people to love and support that. But it's also about being, to me, in a community where we can be vulnerable and we can share our dark sides. And sometimes people, and so I like you, for a while I thought I could just serve anybody, and I can pretty much. But I realized recently that really the people that I serve best, and I'm trained in 20 years of training as in shadow work. And I've learned that through facilitating men's work in Mankind Project weekends. And what I realized, particularly during the pandemic, and really getting myself into some trouble, is that I don't do that very well with women, gay women with internal feminine energy. So I've even gotten my ideal clients are even more defined as gay, bi, trans men who identify with that male energy. Because when I go inside and do shadow work inside us, I know what I'm doing. I'm skilled. I'm a master at that. When I'm trying to work with women, I'm running into all sorts of objects that I don't know what to do, and I offend them. So I just said, no more. I can't. I've hurt relationships. And he was, why don't you work with lesbians? I said, it's because I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I'm a shadow. I work with shadow, and I understand the interior landscape of the male energy, but I don't understand it with women. So, and there's no shortage of gay, bi, trans men out there who in our community who are going through feelings of unworthiness and shame around their identity, and it's standing in the way of them making the kind of money living living the life they want to live. And so that's that. So I 100% in alignment with you, and it gives me joy when I can help people who are like me get through the same hurdles that I got through. That's the whole point, really, is as coaches, is to share our story and help other people like us who are stuck back where we were, back when you were working in that toxic environment and not feeling good about yourself and not afraid of your unauthentic self. Now you're blossoming, and there's so many gay men out there, and I know that you include women too. They're in the community who really relate to you, and you can help guide them. Particularly coaches, I think that's who you work with. You can guide them through a journey that you've already been on.
Yeah. And I think, you really said it really eloquently there, is that it's really easy for us to say, we can help anyone, or here's who I help. But it takes this level of self-awareness and authenticity to say, this is who I can't serve.
Right.
And I think that is also a really key piece of this conversation, is that, we have to be honest with ourselves and with our clients and with our audiences, even when it's not an answer that we might want to hear.
Yeah, right. We have to walk our talk, don't we?
Yeah.
We absolutely have to walk our talk, and that's and so what I loved about your story is that you were working in a toxic environment where you couldn't be yourself. I was too. I worked for a Fortune 100 financial services firm, and then I began to create my own business and coaching practice before the COVID-19 happened. And I had, like you, I had a number of good clients. I was doing well, and I decided to extend, when COVID came out, I extended all my clients for the rest of the year at no cost. And I'm so glad I did, because it gave me a chance to experiment and really see what I'm capable of. And I'm trying to share with you, because I know you coach coaches, and I'm just kind of telling you my story. And what I realized is that I founded a heart-centered coaching practice, a method where I'm combining shadow work, contemplative prayer, sort of a metaphysical component, as well as spiritual wisdom into one unit. And I'm getting some real breakthroughs and real quick movement with people, because it's got all these components pulled together that I got to practice with. And in doing that, I discovered it just works best with people I know best, who are most like me. That's just what I discovered. And well, I'm more enthusiastic, because I never dreaded a call with a say a female client, because I enjoy them. I like them. It's not, I have a lot of love, in particular. I love women. I think they're part of my life. But I would always I kind of doubted myself. I didn't know really what to do sometimes when they were stuck someplace. So I just got honest with myself and said, who I'm going to serve is this, in this capacity. And I just got to notice that they're having trouble on Facebook. I don't know, streaming. I don't know. I don't know why that's having a hard time. I just got to notice. I just, whatever the thing came up and said, I just did it. So I don't know what that means exactly. Yeah, but it said that my streaming on our Facebook group was not going through live, and they didn't know why. So they suggested I remove it. So I will remove it, and then I'll repost it the live replay later.
That's the replay.
Yeah, I don't understand technology. So instead of sitting here wasting our time trying to argue with it, I thought I'll just do what they tell me and move forward with it. I don't quite know why they do stuff like that. But anyway, so tell me a little bit more about what it's like being in Asheville, North Carolina. Did you grow up there? And
yeah, so I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and moved to Asheville for college, and then just ended up sticking around. So I, because of my work, I'm really fortunate to be able to work from anywhere, which means that I am in a house in the woods, up a mountain. And, that, being in this environment, day-to-day basis has actually done wonders for the business, and for my professional life, because, we talk a lot about environment, whether that's in, the environment that we're surrounding ourselves in terms of people and community. And for me, when the pandemic set in, I was actually living in an apartment. Now, it was a nice apartment. It was a pretty big apartment. But as it became clear that this pandemic was a very real thing that was not going to be going away anytime soon, it definitely felt like the walls were kind of closing in on me in this apartment, and it started to feel smaller and smaller. So, one of the things that I had to do was be really conscious about the physical environment that I'm in. And so here I am.
I have some family that has a house in Arden, North Carolina, which is not too far from Asheville. I think it's Arden is the name of the town. Yeah, kind of a mountain, not too far from Asheville. And I've visited there a few times in the past. So let me ask you a question. So what would you say to anyone, not just a coach, but any young or older, because people often they struggle with their queer nature. I have a friend that's in his 70s. He's still married and he's still struggling with it. What would you say? What advice would you give? Is there a book that you would read? What would you say? What's a simple thing, that the first step for someone who is still struggling to get there, to find their real power in themselves as a queer man or woman?
The number one thing I would say is find or start a community of queer people that you can be around. And by community, I mean 3 or 4 people. You don't have to go start a huge Facebook group or start a meetup, but start to connect with fellow queer people who might be going through the same things as you, or who might be on the other side of what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who has a really interesting model for community building called porch circles, and the premise of it is really simple: is having 4 to 8 people gathering together, sharing what's going on in their lives and how they can support one another.
That's
And
beautiful.
that simple framework can be so massive. If nothing else, just not feeling alone in your queerness.
Yeah, as you well, both of us know that human beings, men and women, have been sitting in circle and sharing stories around a
Yeah.
campfire since the beginning of time. And that's what we do. That's what you're suggesting, is to find people that it could just be one person. You can start with one friend, one relationship. Find one person you connect that you want to build a relationship with, and then meet them for breakfast once a week and just share what's going on in your lives. Because they're probably, what I think you'll find is that there's somebody just like you out there who's looking for a relationship with someone who feels like you do.
Yeah.
And so put yourself out there and be vulnerable, and in today's world, it's not all that hard, because there's all kind of Facebook groups that you can start with, and you meet somebody in a Facebook group and you share a common interest with, and they live in the same area. You could just have a virtual breakfast date with somebody. I've done that recently. I've met people on here, and I like them, and I just met them. So let's just have a coffee chat, and let's talk and get to know each other. And then that became something else, like meeting you,
Yeah.
for example. You joined our Facebook group because we had something in common. And then when you joined in, I said, you want to get on a connection call, and just found out, and we did, and we had this nice, lovely conversation, and we realized how much we had in common, how much we shared, and we decided, yeah, you're on the show. That's just how it's
Here we are.
You start building that. You just have to, but you got to put a little bit of effort out.
Yeah.
And like you say, it doesn't have to be a Facebook group. It can just be a simple, meet somebody, take them off on to have a little direct message with someone, and say, and feel and see if there's somebody you want to get to know. You may find that they're not, they may not be. Then go find someone else new. Because I look at it this way. When I started creating this Facebook group, is I began to look at Facebook land as a great big playground.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, here's this. This is kind of how I decided out who I wanted to work with. If I was going out onto a playground and I didn't know a soul out there, who would I gravitate to?
Yeah.
As a gay man, I will tell you, I'm always looking for someone who looks and thinks like me. Oh my God, there's a friend of mine. There's an old client. Talk about it. There's my good friend Ruby Fraser. She was a client of mine when I used to work with women. She's a wonderful, wonderful person.
Hey, Ruby. Thanks for joining us.
A lovely, lovely, lovely person. And I am so glad for the time we got to spend together. And she's now doing her own thing in the world, helping women, mostly working with women. And Ruby, thank you so much for joining us today and being part of it. She's been on the show with me before, so it's good to have you back here, Ruby. And thank you for stepping in and saying hello. So I go out in the playground every day, and I'm looking for people in Facebook land and saying, who comes up on the playground that looks like I want to know them, because they're interesting. I'm interested in them, curious.
Mm-hmm. And you attract the energy that you're putting out there.
Right.
So if you're sitting in the corner of the playground with your arms crossed, that's what you're going to get.
Right.
So it does take this kind of opening of ourselves
Exactly.
to allow ourselves for that connection.
And what we've all learned is that the virtual world, we can connect. and we connect very well in the virtual world.
Mhm.
And while as when COVID ends and we're going to go back to, we'll probably go to some kind of new normal where it's going to be a hybrid. The world is going to operate in a virtual way. We're going to learn that way. We're going to coach that way. We're going to build communities this way, because we can now build global communities all over the world with people who are more like ourselves. And that's exciting. That's exciting, you know? So that's what I agree with you. And you get a wonderful opportunity right here is to go out and find people that you like, that you want to get to know, and just say hello. You know, ask them if you. I always say so when people used to ask me, you know, when you clients say, well, what do you know, how you seem to go to parties or networking this, and you seem to. I said, you know what? It's just the same. Go and be more interested than interesting.
Yeah.
Whenever I used to go out and I want to be interesting. I want people to like me. That's about me. And you know, no one wants one more person at a party that's trying to be interesting. And what you're saying, when you are your authentic self, you are by nature interesting. So you don't have to go out and be interesting, because you are interesting. But what you can go out and do as an act is be interested and be curious and ask questions and get to know someone from your heart. And you'll be amazed at what you will find, at the connections you'll get to make out there. And that's a lot of fun. And I see it's now 30 minutes after the hour, and I knew that if you and I got on here together, this would fly by, and I would have to go right to my meditation. So let's go into our meditation, because we do meditate for 20 minutes. And you just follow along with me. Jacob, be my audience, my meditation class, if you will. It helps. And the kind of meditation we do is something called centering prayer. And it's just, it actually comes a little bit out of the Course of Miracles. It comes out of Thomas Keating. And it's a way of really going in and finding that authentic self, finding that best self. Because the best self is in the heart. It's not in the head. That's what we talk about, an abundance mindset or prosperity mindset always includes the heart space, which always knows the truth. So we're going to take a little time out here and quiet the mind. We can't stop the thinking mind, because we don't want it to, because if we're not thinking, we're not alive. You know, that's what the brain does. But we can slow it down. And one way you can do that is when we think, our tongues vibrate a little bit. So we can reverse engineer it, and we can actually consciously breathe and slow down the vibration of the tongue, and we'll slow down the thinking. And the way to do that, it's a little technique I'll share with you, is to take the tip of your tongue and rest it on the roof of your mouth, just behind your front teeth, and just relax it there. Part your lips slightly so you can breathe in your mouth and your nostrils, and relax your jaw. And just try that and focus the mind on relaxing and breathing and massaging the back of your tongue. Just try that for a second, and just breathe naturally and massage your tongue. And just notice what happens as you focus all your thoughts around on gently massaging that tongue. Feel the breath gently slowing everything down. Notice the rise and the fall of the rib cage. As you just naturally be still and breathe. And let go of any thinking. When thinking comes up, just let it go. And come back to massaging the breath, or massaging the tongue with the breath. And allow yourself to become more still. Allowing the mind to soften. The area around the heart space to open slightly. Notice any restriction you might be carrying in your body, and allow it to soften. And become aware of your belly muscles and use them to pull the breath through the nose, through the mouth, massage the tongue, down the throat, into the belly. It's kind of an anchor. Anchor your spirit in your body and ground yourself into the chair to be present. Allow the breath, the focus on the breath, to bring you more present to this moment. And to get us even more present, create some more space within ourselves, we're going to do 3 belly breaths. And they look like this. You're going to use your belly muscles to pull the breath in through the nose, through the mouth, down the throat, massage the tongue, open the heart, and pull the breath deep into your belly. And hold it, and then we're going to let it go. So you ready for the first one? Breathe it in. Expand the belly. Pull it in a little bit deeper. Hold it. Hold it. And just gently let it go. And as you exhale, let every thought, every opinion, every judgment, every story you have about me, Jacob, yourself, this world, let them all go. Just consciously surrender them and fall back into infinite love consciousness, our essence. And just be still and notice if thoughts come up, which they will. Thank that brilliant brain of yours for doing its work, and just let it go and come back to the breath. And find your anchor in your belly. To begin to breathe again and focus on the breath. And we're going to do another big belly breath. You ready? So with your belly muscles, pull the breath in through the nose, through the mouth. Massage the back of the tongue. Open up the heart space. And pull the breath deep into your belly and hold it for a second. Hold it a little longer. Now just let it go. And let go of any remaining beliefs and thoughts, especially those in which you might feel ashamed. Hold on to nothing. And allow that bell, the vibration of that bell, to pull you more deeply within yourself. Scan around inside yourself to see if there's any emotions you're holding on to. Any fear, any joy, any shame, anything you're feeling. Just accept it, welcome it, and feel it. Whatever it is, welcome that feeling into your meditation practice as a way to guide us more deeply into our heart space. And finally, we're going to do one more belly breath. And then I'm going to be silent, with the exception of the wake-up bells, which will come along. I think 3 of them will come along. Bless you. You wake us up from our thinking so we can reset and fall back into infinite love. So here we go. With your belly muscles, pull the breath in through the nose and the mouth. Massage the back of the tongue. Open up the heart. And pull that breath deep into your belly to anchor yourself in this space. Get present. Ready? Pull it in a little deeper. Expand the belly. Create all the space you need. And finally let go of any remaining thoughts and opinions and judgments and stories you might be holding on to. And just be still and know that I am divine love energy, pure love consciousness. Not me, Martin. I'm just a man sitting in a body. But I am not me. There's the sound of that wake up bell, that sweet sound to wake us up from our thinking, our plotting, our planning, maybe even our sleeping. And the invitation is to thank that brilliant mind for its work and just invite it to let go and allow yourself to fall back into that stillness of infinite love within ourselves. There's that sweet, sweet sound of the wake-up bell again to wake us up from our thinking, our planning, our worrying, our sleeping. And the invitation is simple. Just thank that brilliant mind of yours and let it go and pull the breath deep into the belly and come back to the breath. Fall into a divine presence within. And there's our final bell to bring us back into the material world, so to speak. Be present, be here and now, awake, enlightened, empowered. How are you feeling, Jacob?
Feeling really centered.
That's why they call it centering prayer.
Yeah.
It was developed by Father Keating about 40 years ago, and it's a very, very, very good practice, and that's what I practice, and I practice it throughout the day, and it's a way to stay centered in the heart space, really. Mm-hmm. So that it's driving the bus for me most of the time today, and that's why I do it, because I found that that's my authentic self, that's my power, and it's my queer nature, and et cetera, et cetera. So anybody out in the audience land have anything they want to say? Ruby, do you have anything you want to say? Are you still with us? Ruby's a meditator as well. Okay. Well, Jacob, before we close out, I want to ask you to let us know if people want to find you and get to know you and build a relationship with you in some way. What's the
Yeah.
best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if you'd like to connect with me, you can just on Facebook as Jacob Ratliff, add me as a friend, or jacobratliff.com for more information about me as well.
Okay. But I think some of the quickest and the easiest way, since it's right here, is just go to Facebook and just, and just ask him to be your friend. And then
Yep.
if you want, I imagine they could just send you a direct message too, couldn't they? Just say,
Yep,
hello.
absolutely.
I just saw you on Martin's show and I like you and I'd like to get to know you. It's just that easy, It's really, if that's your truth. And I'm sure it's like me, he would love to meet you and have a conversation with you and get to know you and see how you could become part of his orbit. And I feel the same way. So thank you for that, Jacob. And before we close out, I want to make everyone aware of a couple of things. As you know, I'm a spiritual teacher and I'm a prosperity and mindset coach working with gay, bi, and transgender men. And I'm offering tomorrow, I just created this wonderful new workbook. It's called the Heart-Centered Problem-Solving Method. And it's a 3-step process. It's a metaphysical way of solving problems. It's 3 steps. It's 1, owning that any problem we have, we created it. If you got a problem, you created it. No one else I can't create your problems and you can't create mine, but I always create my own. But you got to be clear about that. And once you get clear about that, the second part is then you got to get clear about what the problem is. So part of the worksheet is I take you through a 6-step process of like really identifying the various components of the problem, how you created the problem, so you know. And then the third part, which is the metaphysical part, is the surrender. There's a surrendering prayer template where you take the information you did in the first 2 steps and you plug it into the template, and you have what I call a surrendering prayer. And I'm going to be teaching that tomorrow within the Facebook group for the gay, bi, and transgender men. And that's at 1:00 tomorrow. And if that's part of your community, please join us there and I will bring your problem and I will help you solve it. I also want to make you aware that I have another Facebook group called the Financial Mystic Sanctuary. Everybody's invited into that group. And I'm going to be leading a workshop in that group, a live workshop on Saturday, the 15th of May, I believe is the day. And everybody's invited to that. So I want everybody to be included. I think it's a very powerful tool that anyone would want to have in their toolbox to solve problems. Because like Einstein says, you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that created the problem. So we need a metaphysical solution, a metaphysical process. And that's exactly what this is. It's a little bit revolutionary, but you know what? It works. I've been doing it with myself and my clients for years. And I just decided to put it into a very simple workbook that anybody can follow. So join. If you've got a problem, bring it tomorrow. If you're part of the gay, bi, trans community, join our work coming tomorrow and join us. Bring your problem there, and we'll go. And you can download a free copy of the workbook, and I'll walk you through the steps. If you're not part of that community, you're also welcome to join us in the Financial Mystic Sanctuary Facebook group. And we're going to be doing a work. Again, you can download a free copy of the workbook from that group, and you can attend a live workshop on not this Saturday, but 2 weeks from this Saturday. It's the middle Saturday in the month of May. I can't think of the day off the top of my head, but it's going to be there, and there'll be more announcements about that. But that's what's coming up for me, and I'm really excited about the workbook. And people have really been who have been playing with it, and I'll send a copy to you, Jacob, as well. People who've been playing with it have really said, "This is amazing," and I say, "Yeah, I know. It's because this is what Einstein was talking about. We need to tap into that higher power within ourselves." It comes out of really the 12 steps of AA. And the first step, there's 12 steps in A, but these are the 3 core. It's 1, realize that if you got a problem with alcohol, you created it. Nobody else created it for you. And the second one is really get clear about what the problem is, why alcohol is a problem for you. And the third one is say, I can't handle it. I need to surrender it to God, or whatever you call that higher power. And just like it's been successful for millions of people in 12-step and other recovery programs, it works just as well. It's the same principle for everybody and to solve their problem. So that's what's coming up for me. So anything else from you, Jacob, coming up in your world out there that you want people to know about?
Nothing at the moment.
Nothing at the moment?
Happy to connect with anyone who wants to add me on Facebook and send me a DM.
Well, I'm so glad that I got to know you, because I'm so glad you're in my stable of friends these days, and I need to have more people like you in my group. And I'm so grateful to have you on the show today and to be my friend and fellow coach in this world. And and it's just been a joy having you here today with us. So
yeah, thank you so much for having me.
yeah, I'm so grateful that you came. Thank you so much for this. And hang around for just a second. Let me just close this out and say thanks to everyone for joining us today. If you're watching the replay, which more people watch the replay than the live, because we do this at noon every day, please put your comments into the comment section, and I will come back later, and maybe even Jacob will come back later, and we'll reply to the comments, or you can send me a direct message. We're really here to love and support each other through the world as we are all unfolding, as we're moving from what I call poverty thinking to prosperity living. And may love and prosperity prevail. Thank you.